with you, Adrian. I've known you the longest. So what's going on with film finance and AI and state affairs?
Wow. We've only got like 55 minutes.
Yeah, but let's jump in.
No forfeit. Okay. So I work for Custom Crew, which is mostly known as a payroll company, but we have a finance unit. We do a lot of production financing for mostly smaller budget independents. And it's interesting because the AI conversation has really, a couple of years ago in Cannes, it was, oh, that's coming 2 years away. And then last year it was, oh, it's coming and it's like 6 months away. So that the conversation at least has accelerated a lot. We haven't yet had anyone approach us with a film, that was going to utilize AI, at least in any kind of meaningful way. But it is increasingly part of that conversation with independent producers. It's really a question of how accessible that technology is for producers and how they integrate that bit by bit into the production process. The model is still very much what it was many years ago in terms of, smaller budget films from, let's say, $500,000 to $3 million, being put together with tax incentives and pre-sales and some equity. And obviously, part of the issue with AI is that there's some legal and sort of moral sort of issues with it. Also, the guilds and the unions and things like that have something to say. So until somebody really figures that out, or everyone's given a real full sort of green light with it, I don't know how pervasive it's going to be, at least in changing the existing model, other than making bits and pieces of the production process less expensive, because that's ultimately what I think one of the main issues.
That's really important. Thank you so much to actually put everybody's mind at ease. That's the question that I get on a regular basis. So Jeff is requesting that I set it up before I jump in. I'm coming around. So Jeff, you come from participants and making content that is socially, conscious, that makes a difference, and then making your film fund. And then now you're also bringing IP from the Asian markets to the American market. How are you seeing it affect you and how you do your content creation?
My name's Jeff. I've been in Hollywood since 2006, and I've managed film funds. I now work for a Japanese anime company, Toei Animation. They produce Dragon Ball Z, One Piece, Sailor Moon, and I've went from the CFO's office, from the executives while I was at Participant, to a visual effects house called Digital Domain. That's where I was turned on to AI, and I've been tracking that since. And then now at Toei Animation, I'm cracking all of this. And sometimes I want to speak as someone who's a career professional, and then sometimes I want to put my Toei Animation hat on and speak from that perspective. But AI is here, and it's unavoidable, and it's how we adapt to it. And I'll just lay it out that way.
So how do you feel we should be adapting?
I think we should have a high standard of ethics when it comes to AI. And there has to be a lot of discussion among the guilds of how to handle it. So I don't have any answers. All I know is, and I'll share throughout this next hour, how I've been tracking it for strategy for Toei Animation of how to recommend, how do we approach it? Because from an investor standpoint, it's definitely something to invest in. It's going to change the paradigm. But on the flip side, how do you protect the artists and the creatives and honor that? Because that is really what our industry is all about.
Peter, you're the financing money bags. How are you making your decisions? Has it affected how you make your decisions on?
It hasn't really, because I don't think, as Adrian indicated earlier, it hasn't really been adopted that much. I saw one little statistics and let's talk about when AI, as far as production generating into generative AI. Most, I think so, I said 70% of people do not want to see AI generated movies. People still want to see live actors. I know there was a big hubris about her name is Tilly, the first AI actress, but I think there is something about Hollywood. There is something about the magic of having some A-list actor or something like that. And so, but what we do see, and depend where you see AI, on the filmmaking side, it can be a cool. I am currently working with a company called Imagine, and what they have is an AI project that helps you in the production cycle. So it dropping your script, it breaks it down in 2 minutes. So it helps you be much more efficient. It helps you with casting and application. I could go on and on and on, but it's used more as all from the creatives in that respect. So that's more collaborative. It's not going to be replaced. What's going to replace anybody who makes storyboards. And I think that's where you're going to see a big shift. One shift that we do see AI coming up is in commercials. Pretty soon, and no one really cares who's in commercial, right? You're going to see a ton of AI generated commercials, especially when you see the volume, because a lot of people view content, let's say on YouTube, they want to insert a commercial, they want a good one, they want it cheap, and they'll see much more with generative AI in that respect.
Peter, do you think that will change as AI gets better and we will not be able to differentiate between reality and AI generated content?
Well, again, how are you going to create an AI star in that respect? It's not unique. It's not human. I don't know if people really want to, again, that's more of a consumer taste. But I think, and we're talking live action. I think in animation, you're going to see AI probably just take over that role.
It's scary. In the Japanese audience and the American audience do not like AI. If they even see a hint of it on the marketing or anything like that, they're boycotting it. Huge backlash, for Toei and other large studios. It's something that is maybe in the research department, but it's not ready. I mean, AI has not made me laugh. I can't. It's
You don't relate. It
I don't
convey human
any
emotion.
valley, but it's getting so good, and we're dealing with it.
Don't you feel that it's already been part of content creation to some extent with CGI and
It's swap.
yeah.
That's what I see that's out there right now on my Facebook and Instagram feed. But the real power of AI is the productivity that's being
Making things quicker and cheaper.
quicker, not yet cheaper that I've seen. But I was going to compare the Japanese audience and the American audience and most Western Europe to the Chinese audience, who is wholeheartedly embracing AI.
Really?
And they're so far ahead, and the quality of their AI animations are just, they're
Do you think
They're amazing.
animation is different than live action?
so I have my Toei hat on. It is different. And from what we've seen of AI, it has sped up the animation, but it loses the character of the artist. And so when put right next to each other, when we're doing testing or whatnot, the audience prefers the imperfection of the artist-driven one. But at the same time, the audience demands quicker, faster. Like, oh, an anime is not going to come out for another 2 years? Oh my God, I'm not, they don't want to wait, but that's the amount of time it takes. So we're stuck between this instant gratification audience and society, but we're trying to preserve the artistry.
So we're still figuring it out, even as an
We're
audience,
still figuring it out.
even all the noise.
It depends on the geography. Yeah.
So you also were involved in raising funds for various, creating various kinds of content. So do you feel like it's affecting the financing part of the content creation?
So this goes back to my days at Participant. I've been using tools, market research since forever for market research, S&P, market intelligence, Basecamp, all of those. But as time passed, there are implementations of AI in the background, not even AI, just machine learning and everything like that. And it makes forecasting more efficient. I use tools like Synalytic. I used to have a staff of 5, 6. Now I could do it by myself, at least internally.
Well, efficiency.
It's totally efficient, but it's not just AI. Those are just tools that are much better now, right? But how I get that financing is how you present, how you sell it. The numbers are all directional and could show you the potential, but it's execution dependent. It's on the management team. It's about track record. It's about brand. That's really how I get it. Your project sold in.
So, Peter, when do people come to you? What kind of projects are hitting your desk?
When they're desperate, generally. Again, we're focusing more on the independent side. The studios, that's just a different league altogether. And one of the things, it used to be, because we're debt financier, we're not equity, so we're kind of the last persons in. We do get involved more and more to help people structure their transaction, depending upon where they're getting their capital, what tax structures they should use in that case. So we're becoming much, much more of an executive producer in that respect, and helping people manage the process of getting a film going from script stage to actually being shot. But as Jeff said, as using a comp, that we are seeing the good thing about AI, and this is for raising money. So you have a beautiful script, but you want to give a visual presentation of that. And we are seeing now the generative AI. We used to be these what do you call them, rip reels, where you would steal scenes from somebody else's movie and say, this is what I'm trying to create. Now you have a tool, I don't know how many of you actually have used it, where you can put your script in there, proper prompts, you can kind of generate what your film's going to look like. And that process is a tool to help you raise money, because people can now, looking at the script, they can say, oh, this is what it's going to look like, it's the deal, and you'll have real actors ultimately. So that's kind of a tool I think we're seeing people starting to use more and more now with AI.
So is that AI or just technology?
It's AI, because instead of, like I said, back in the bad old days, people would literally look at some really good films and go, this is the image that we're going to make. And now, with the proper prompts, you can generate a good trailer using AI. Google has a very good system. Sora, I think, I don't know your preferences, Jeff, as far as the.
I have no preference. I'm still using the GPT plus and generating images. But can we go back to the basics and say, when an independent film producer is preparing a package, what was the traditional package that was submitted, and what do you see is changing now because of AI? The tone reels, the riff reels is one of them, but are there how their script is being constructed?
Right. Bottom line, it has to be a story that's universal, that people can relate to. That hasn't changed. That'll always be the case. You've got to get something that ideally would be unique and that would stand out. And I think the second part, even though we do have generative AI, people still want to see stars. People still want to see actors. There was one, again, it's not AI, but the recent film that was done by Cassin Elwes, Bill Skarsgård, excuse me, and he had Al Pacino, and it was Gus Van Sant directed. Putting that together, it was a great project, and it got picked up to Toronto because you had good story and a good cast. And I think that still has not changed. You could have a great cast and a bad story, and it's just not going to work. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, at the end of the day, I think, the filmmaking, the end result of making a movie is a very, it's a personal thing. And going back to the early stages, when people come to us and they've got these presentations or a deck or, whether it's a hard copy or it's digital or whatever, it really doesn't matter how it looks at that point. Sometimes it's just written out on a, Word document. Other times it's a really nicely formatted sort of AI generated presentation. It's what's in it that really matters. It's the substance of it. I'm not looking at anything different saying, oh, look, this really, jumps off the page. And ultimately, when you look at how you're going to exploit the value of that, that property, it's down to the talent, it's down to the actors and the director, and how you're going to generate revenue and attract buyers and attract an audience. So I'm sure at some point there will be a parallel universe where people are making movies with AI, and I'm sure there's an audience for it, but it's nowhere near mainstream, at least not in the US, Western Europe, and other places. Like Jeff said, maybe China is, way ahead. I just don't think we're at that point yet. It's a good tool to enhance the look of things, maybe, or to cut some costs somewhere along the line in production. But at the essence of every movie is the story and how that story is told on a screen.
So let's get back to the basics. When do people come to you for financing?
They come to us generally before they go to Peter. But we're effectively, our lending group, it sort of spun off from the payroll, and they realized, 10, 12 years ago that, we had a lot of clients that were coming to us for payroll that needed financing. So it started as sort of just monetizing tax incentives. And then a couple of years ago, we started, monetizing pre-sales and doing the whole sort of senior debt piece, just like a bank. And so we're basically a bank lender. We have bank facilities, and we put on a very small margin. But what it is, it's fairly rigid. So unlike Peter, who can do different things, maybe take a little more risk here and there, we're very much within that bank box. What's really changed, though, is that there are no more banks in that smaller budget independent space. So,
What are you calling smaller budget independent space?
well, we've done loans as small as $500,000, maybe $1 million budget. We're probably looking to nudge that up a little bit because there's some sort of costs associated with it that, it's a lot of work no matter the size of the transaction. So, I think our minimum loan size these days would be more probably about $1 million. If your budget's $1.5 million or $2 million, something like that.
So you really are in for the indie.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. And the sort of the icing on the cake for the client is that, along with the financing and the payroll side of it as well, which we do a pretty good job with. We have other subsidiaries like Final Draft, Caps, and do all sorts of different things that really can have some sort of value to a producer from start to finish in that process.
And Adrian, you're from the banking world, so is it any different than what you were doing at the bank?
No, not really. I mean, we're just a sort of an extra sort of layer in between the bank and the client, and we were able to offer those smaller loans. If you went directly to the bank, they wouldn't want to do it. But because we have a large facility with them, we can keep doing a large amount of those smaller deals. So that's how it works for us.
And Peter, after they go to Adrian and they don't get anywhere, they come to you.
Sometimes, though. I mean, by the way, Adrian and I used to work back before the turn of the century at a company called Lee Horowitz Organization. The fundamentals, as Adrian said, it hasn't changed. Again, we at 120, we're in a company with a non-bank bank. We're acting much more as an executive producer. They're trying to guide people where to do to work with, more importantly, not to work with. This is a very, very small town. And to hark on to what Adrian said, yeah, we tend to do the smaller transactions. We are more expensive than bank, but the bank's just not in that market. So that's kind of what we focus on.
What is your minimum cutoff?
It's also $1 million because, as Adrian said, it takes the same amount of work to $1 million as us 500, and we have fixed costs. It's not just our costs. I mean, if you look at the interest costs, there's also cost of legal, the attorney's chart. You attorneys, that should hit the chart.
Transaction costs.
This is just a fixed transaction. And we're also required to draw completion bonds, which is somewhat make sure the film's going to be finished. And even they want a minimum. So those minimums tend to force a certain size budget, which again, that was traditional methodology. One of the big changes we are now seeing is I think it's $1 million for evidence, because I think that is going to be the new trend. And primarily is to kind of compete against the short attention span of a generation that, is a TikTok generation. And so what we're starting to see is people making these verticals, relatively small amounts in the 300 to 500 range. And we're going to try to see how we can help that. Because to be quite frank, the traditional movie model, make an independent film for 90 days.
Would that be kind of like series,
Well, basically, you're taking a 90-minute movie,
chopping it up?
chopping it up into 5-minute. That, again, this is the TikTok generation. People will not, I don't know how many have kids, how many actually will sit down, watch a 90-minute show, and it's not animated. So that's interesting, the verticals.
Are you doing the same thing with the animation?
We're exploring it for marketing purposes, but not for the model where you're paying 99 cents. You get 2 episodes or 3 episodes for free, and then you're paying 99 cents per episode going forward. That's a new model that's emerging. That's very mature in China again.
That's the Chinese.
And then it's coming over here in a big way. And the guilds are now below the line are getting in there. And the people who are out of work from television and film are now jumping into verticals and getting the same rates. So that's amazing. That's amazing to hear. I live in South Pasadena. There's a lot of below the line costumes, hair and makeup, and they're all getting the same rates as television shows for these verticals, which is very.
It's still content. We just reformatting, refiguring out how to adapt a new environment. I feel like
Well, but they're also shooting it in like 10 days.
Yeah,
They're just
frankly speaking, Wild West right now.
it kind of reminds me of the days of reality TV, not scripted. How it was very scrappy, made for less, and we were all trying to figure that out, which not scripted is a misnomer, as you all know. It is very scripted. So kind of a new genre.
Oh, well, I'm actually interested in this because this is it bankable? Like, you're not getting a completion bond for these things. These are smaller. These are 200, 500,000 series for the entire series. The business plan plays out and the lenders are comfortable with it? Or is this like a...
Well, as you mentioned earlier, I think the same amount to do one as it does at 300. And what you do is you light them up. So you'll do 3 verticals and you set a structure where it's not quite verticals, but we're looking at a transaction now where each one of these I wouldn't touch. But we're going to do a series of 3.
So that's your minimum number. You need 3 at a time.
Well, no, it's not so much 3. It's just the absolute dollar, like it's weight. And, it's sort of like a factory. Okay, this one's that. We actually even have a completion bond who said, yeah, we'll do all 3. Wow. We're going to charge it.
Are they all shot at the same time?
No, but they're going to treat it like a TV series.
Right.
So you have 3 separate movies. They're not linked together, other than the same producer, same distributor. This one had a North Carolina tax credit in that case, and they're shooting their studios. And that's how the packaging to make efficiency to get debt financing or SNED.
But this is how fast it's moving. Like it could be failed famously at the beginning of COVID.
They're a little too ahead of it.
They're a little too ahead. And then this red maple and these verticals are coming in 2022, 2023. And now it's something that's bankable.
It's taking over.
Super surprising.
We've had some conversations with some people that sort of similar content and to get around the completion guarantee issue, because the bond companies really aren't bonding anything under probably $3 or $4 or $5 million at sort of gross production. These companies were bringing corporate and personal guarantees to the table. Obviously, not a lot of people want to put a personal guarantee behind something like that, but we're small children. Yeah.
So let's talk about what a bond is. Go with the very basics, right? What is a bond? Why do you need a bond for a movie?
Well, a completion bond is a specialty insurance product that originated, not long after people started making movies, because lenders, particularly banks, didn't want to take the production risk, because if halfway through your production there's some, flood or an actor falls off a horse or something, they're going to be stuck carrying a loan. So the bond companies ensure that the film is going to get finished according to the script and budget schedule. And if for some reason they can't finish the film, they will pay off the financing. They obviously, in return for that with the producer, they have the ability to replace pretty much anybody, that include up to and including the director. But then, and they also will make sure that, they'll do a lot of vetting of the key sort of heads of department, especially the production account, the line producer. So, it was actually a very good sort of answer to the question of how do we protect ourselves as a lender. And there's basically, these.
So what's the cost of
for-
them?
It's usually about, I think a bond fee is around 3% of the budget.
And also they have a minimum of charge, a minimum of $30,000. And there's also variants of a completion bond. There's one where they're actually going to guarantee that it'll be finished on time, and the other one we just did one. Someone's doing a documentary, a TV series for ESPN, and they were just more monitoring for us, making sure it's on target and not going over budget. And the producer himself had guaranteed the delivery, and that was facilitated.
It kind of provides an oversight.
Yeah, it's kind of an oversight because you got to remember, Adrian and I are just sitting back home, give you a whole bunch of money, and then come back to the film. Things happen. And typically, as far as abandonment, that's relatively rare. I'd probably be involved in maybe 2 abandonment movies in several decades. Typically, what you see is they're going to have to make sure it gets delivered. Or recently, we've had to have people, the bond companies write checks because there was cost overruns. And interesting, we had one case, just a very quick example, but we're doing a post financing. Everybody says, oh, it's a post, you don't have to worry. In this particular case, it's a $3 million post deal. $3.5 million budget. What in post, they went over budget by $900,000.
Wow. Just in post?
Yes.
Doing what, Peter?
Not paying all their bills. And that was the bigger part. They said they could pay bills. They did. So as a lender, we didn't know about that. All the bond company had to step up to write a big check for that.
They think there was a bond.
Yeah. So we always say a bond is like a gun. It's better to have than not need it than you didn't.
Right.
Peter and I worked on a deal, Stephen King's Children of the Corn during COVID.
Forgot about that.
That wasn't bonded.
It was not bond.
We had to provide guarantee because it was COVID.
Right.
All the bond subsidies were like,
Right. The cost doubled and tripled. Yep.
and then our producer, since it was a lower budget film, quote, lower budget film, and the primary producer on it was a veteran, he did not feel that he needed to incur the costs of a bond. Like in lieu of that, we had to provide certain guarantees on the corporate end.
Corporate guarantee.
Corporate guarantees.
Did that get called in?
No,
You were fine.
finished the film, it went out, it got distribution.
So let's talk about that. A producer that has a track record and its experience and it's bondable.
I think these days, that's all that still shows for something, but I think actually this is a question. Completion bond is kind of the gold standard, right? Can you get away with similar levels of just production insurance wraparounds? Do you actually need that completion bond stamp of approval from Film Finances or another organization? Or can you get away with just very heavy production insurance? Does that?
Well, yes, the insurance cover, accidents. We had a film where James Franco hurt himself on a horse. The bond company didn't pay the $6 million payout. It was the essential element insurance. And the bond company managed that. There's massive delay in taking the film. We use the word completion bond. We just want someone to make sure that they're on the hook to make it finished. So that we had worked with you, digital. We have high net worth individuals, which we've also worked with to say, hey, look, we're going to make sure it's finished. You're write a check if it's all done. So, but you need someone to take the risk because I'm not a producer. I don't know what you spent. So we need to make things.
Adrian?
Well, the answer to Jeff's question is no, the production insurance is not. I mean, it'll address specific incidents like Peter talked about, but really a bond, it covers the whole production from start to finish. including sort of just delays, things that happen that cost money. Because if you're late delivering the film, then there's additional interest cost that's accrued. And so the bond company is, incentivized to keep everybody on pace and everything. I think the other way to look at it is, as much as we're talking about it as protecting, the lender, it also protects you as the producer, because you're on a film set with 100 people, and there's any sort of thing could go kind of sideways. So it protects you, and it's also a good thing to have on your sort of resume that you're a bondable, filmmaker, because a lot of times, we'll get people coming to us say, "Oh, I'm not going to use a bond." Usually, there's a reason for that. Sometimes it's a total red flag. So, being on side with the completion bond is a really good thing. As certainly if you want to have some sort of a lengthy career and make it a lose.
And the other thing, sorry, just to add on to, it's not just a set protection for the financiers. They're going to help you walk through. These guys and gals are very experienced. They've done, God knows how, like film finance has done over 8,000 movies. They've seen it all, and they'll help you anticipate problems that you may not know because we haven't done that many films. So they're actually can be helpful before you make it, not just walk it.
It kind of brings to mind the Alec Baldwin ability with cinematographer.
Yeah, sadly, we did do it's a movie called Rust. Y'all have heard about that? We actually came in after the fact, after the tragedy on the set, and we were just financing the tax credit to help them finish it. We did that without a bond. We did take a personal guarantee to make sure everything was done properly. And in that particular case, the state of New Mexico has decided not to get the tax credit, and they have come up.
Is that a lawsuit?
Yes, that is a lawsuit. It's blah, 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 blah in that case. But again, this is an example of why you need a bond. The producer is now on the hook to this particular transaction.
Is it personal?
Oh, yeah. As I said, we do take other types of insurance because we want the producer to be incentivized to go. Because, as you know, when we make a loan, it's to be a special purpose corporation with no recourse beyond that company. And so we get to own the film. What he will do with a film that's not completed. So we require, if we don't have the bond, and say, okay, you got to make sure everything's taken care of, not you're on the book. And hopefully in November, we'll find out if he has the right account. If that's it.
Wow. To be continued.
Yes. And again, that's why
we'll ask you about it again next year.
Yeah, call me next year. And I'll have another.
We'll come back to it, Peter.
Yeah. And again, one of the things getting back to kind of the AI interestingly with the company that we're working with are going to be looking at our AI, the bond companies are going to be looking at using this AI tool to help monitor productions because, once you start your production, the pages you're shooting to update your budget, and that's going to be another tool that's going to help the bond companies manage their risk and help the producers.
So, Adrian, can you tell us a little bit about tax credits?
Well, yeah, a lot if you want, but obviously there's not many movies, big or small, that get made these days without utilizing a tax incentive. And the good news for producers is that there's sort of a global arms race, continuously going on. 35, 40, 45%, of your budget, depending on, where you're going to go. I think from our point of view, it's great chasing that sort of percentage, but you really have to look at the devil in the detail in terms of what qualifies, what doesn't qualify. The state of Georgia became very popular because they allowed, above the line expenditures to qualify. A lot of other, places don't. But I think globally, the national level tax credits are a little bit more consistent, a little bit more financier friendly because it's a national government, sort of program. And so they're usually well funded. They're usually well administered. There's transparency. You can get in touch with the tax authorities to some extent, sort of have conversations. The problems that and historically the, cost of crew has encountered has been the state tax credits where, state of New Mexico doesn't want to pay, or the state of Texas doesn't want to pay, or the state of,
Ohio.
yeah. There's some inconsistency there. And for a lender, that's not that's the I word. We don't like that inconsistency. It's not conducive to wanting to go back. New York's a great place to make a movie, but it takes 4 or 5 years to get your money back, and a lot can happen in that time. So obviously, first and foremost, that the jurisdiction has to fit the movie from a creative point of view. But beyond that, I would spend time talking with people that have utilized those tax credits, companies like us or EP or, lenders that are active in that space, and ask them for their advice.
How do you feel about California's new program?
California's a perfectly good place to make a movie. The tax credit, obviously recent times, they're putting some attention into it, upping the funding, and it's a transferable credit. And for independent producers, it's tough to get because the credit here historically was created for the studios in order to sort of, go where the jobs were. So, if for independent producers, it's literally, you can submit your application, but you have no idea whether you're going to get the money. And that's not a very good way to base a business decision. You're waiting and waiting and waiting, and you get it or you don't get it. You don't get that in most other states.
But you all know the difference between a credit and a rebate. Slight difference. You tend to lump them up the same. Credit is against your tax credits. As you're paying taxes, you have to sell the credit. So like in Georgia, they may give you a credit, but you have to sell it, but it sells for like 90 cents on the dollar. So you don't get the whole.
And that's a good deal.
Rebate, like in New York, they just give you a check. And those are the same thing like Kentucky. A whole lot of problem. In New York, they take 5 years to get a check. But again, those are subtle differences.
So something that might look very attractive on the surface in practice could be quite different. So you can't judge it purely by the number or the percent.
And the other thing that we're saying that, we're always trying to manage risk as lenders. One of the things, Adrian had mentioned that natural credits are great. His former country, the UK, has now become very difficult with their credits. In fact, to a certain degree, and you're not even lending against UK tax credit. And that used to be the gold standard because they just make it very, very difficult.
So I have a question about that. You are talking about foreign credits. Now, if you're an American filmmaker and you want to go make a movie in the UK or another foreign territory, Spain is doing really good at the moment. Do you have to give up the IP, the ownership of the movie? Is it even a consideration at that point?
Well, the tax credit in Spain or the UK or wherever is only ever going to get paid to a Spanish or a UK company. So the first thing you have to do is find a local co-producer that you can, work with, who hopefully has got some experience in navigating all of the stuff you have to do in that particular jurisdiction to qualify and then, claim the tax credit. So typically the copyright and everything is housed in that entity. So you still are a part owner of it or a complete owner of it, but for the purpose of the production, it's kind of leased to that entity until you collect the tax credit.
Can we add in an element of inconsistency with these threatened tariffs on films produced overseas? I question the legality of all of that.
Yeah.
Right.
IP.
But
Step in as a lawyer.
But every time an announcement goes out with those
It
threats,
shakes the world, yeah.
it does shake.
Exactly.
It distracts everybody for at least a day.
And then
How does that factor in?
Yeah, it's a very good point, Jeff. And this is, and then we say, why is the entertainment business kind of slow? What's happening? Why aren't more content? Is because there's inconsistency. We can't rely on the law. When they keep changing, it's hard to make deals, make content, or do any transactions. I hear from the M&A attorneys, it's hard to move on when you can't rely on what the law is. But to answer your specific question, you can't. IP is not part of the tariff situation. So, and I will also talk about using AI in creating IP. Copyright has to be created by a human being. So we haven't really gotten into that part of it. So it's very limiting as far as if you're a big, production company, a big studio, and you have your scripts that cannot be copyrighted, or you've got your finished movie that cannot be copyrighted because it's not created by a human being, it kind of defeats the whole purpose. But on the end of it, where we're talking about, helping the production process happen faster, or as Peter and Adrian are talking about, making your financial models more predictable and more effective, that's a whole other discussion, or making more. I actually have a couple of clients who are using AI to make their, their trailers, and it hasn't been effective so far. But we're still not. AI hasn't really grown to the full extent of it.
In 6 months, don't worry, it will be. So
let's also talk about that, the limitations of AI. We all talk about how scared we are, but on the flip side of that, AI is limited by the knowledge that is already out, is learning. The large language models are learning from the creations of human beings, from what we have created. Now, albeit they're consuming it at a very fast pace and, learning at storing information that is not humanly possible for any one person, true, but they're limited by what has been created already. They're not synthesizing it to make new creations. That is a uniquely human ability. So as much as in my opinion, and based on what I read from the neurologists and neuroscientists, the biology, it does have its limitations. Maybe not in the way we're, I'm never going to be as fast as you, something.
Yeah. So at the office, and this is not official, I have this ongoing conversation with my creative team on using AI versus not using AI. And we do script coverage just as a test. So I would use a certain AI tool who this company touts, states that their coverage can visualize and map out all the emotions and all of that stuff. And it's really fancy. And I won't tell you what it is because, I'm not going to endorse it. And then at the same time, I have interns cover the same script. And then my team cover that same script. And we compare our notes. The tool system has a customer support representative who actually was an ex-colleague of mine at Participant. So it was really interesting. So after that script was analyzed, she reviewed the results of the AI and went through the charts and all of that stuff. And then, of course, we have the intern coverage with the interns learning, right? And then we have the coverage from our internal team. And we still debate this. It's still an ongoing conversation. Whose coverage is better? And the coverage from the AI company was faster and can provide the synopsis and the log line really well. But the actual analysis of the script was just what?
Are these blind studies?
No, this is not scientific. This is just something that we're doing at the office and the intern coverage. And of course, our creative coverage is much more accurate and up to snuff compared to, the management companies out there and the talent agencies out there and stuff like that. So I think the only conclusion that we could come up with at this moment that AI works is in generating the log line and the synopsis. And then everything else is just will continue to improve. And we have to remember the AI is measuring itself against the average of its database of what it's trained on. So it's going to give you a benchmark, and this, whether it's emotional, whatever, elements.
Yeah, it's as good as the information
Good
it
as
has.
the training that it is. But
Yeah.
again, the intern and the creative coverage resonates when you read it, just side by side.
Right. And then the issues of it being misogynistic and racist.
So you're not going to, the AI is not going to catch any of that
Right. So AI, for what it's worth, has its limitations
for now.
for now. It definitely has its limitations for now. And then there's the other argument that as a human, the way we think, this is according to neuroscientists, we have a problem, we think about it, we put it aside. I do when I'm writing contracts and step aside from it and then come back and think about it again and the continuity of thinking. And then I might come up with a new answer, a new way of approaching that I would have never thought about before.
You're in the creative industry, like the element of surprise and pleasure when you read a script that's like that pops, that has a plot twist, is the most rewarding thing in the world. And especially when you see it executed on screen, that's better than anything. I don't know.
Magically
Yeah.
moving.
That's really it. And I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
The AI still has not made me laugh. It's like I keep on going back to it. Like I see everything, it's kind of, oh, that's gross, that's weird. But I never seen AI make me laugh. Like,
Or emotionally moved.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not
it's
yet.
really good as if I had I'm gonna say this, but if I had the choice between sometimes having an intern or a first year lawyer first something for me, I would pick the AI. When it's much easier to communicate with it. I don't hurt its feelings. It can go to exactly where it needs to go, and it'll be a lot faster. And then, but that's where it stops. It really can't take it any further than that. And then I have clients who call me up like oh, AI told me to write this, and this is the answer to the question. And, we should put this in the contract. You shouldn't spend so much time. Your lawyers don't really do anything. You should just use this. The template is there. AI told me so. And I look at it and, all I can do is write a very lengthy, what we call CYA. I'm sure you've all had to experience those, and put it into, and I copy all my law partners, and I say, I really recommend that you hire a lawyer and have the lawyer review this and write it. You want to work with us or somewhere else. This is just really not what you want to go in with. And my brother is a physician. He says the same thing. He says patients come in. He says even sometimes with his interns, he has these discussions. AI said this, and it's really not there yet. Maybe one day, but that day is not today.
But at the same time, the AI could identify and detect cancer cells faster than anybody else. So,
but not the treatment.
right.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a hand go up. Of course, you're going to have that. So I'm not saying that. I said, if I were to compare, and I paraphrase it before I even started, I said, this is going to be a controversial statement. I said that before I even started. I'm not denying them. I said, if I were to compare kind of what Jeff was saying, it's much easier. But no, I'm not denying anybody.
So again, AI presents a lot of ethical issues. And as we're all working in the creative industry, we have to make sure to protect the creatives. But at the same time, AI is a tool that's there and the audience is not going to care. So person using the AI, even if it's an intern using the AI, is still going to take that job in the future creative industry versus that person isn't, or the intern that isn't using that AI. So I would take an intern using an AI and hope that intern gains experience.
Absolutely.
And can go into music and work.
This was just a thought experiment. It was actually speaking to the limitation. And then also the other issue with AI is, which keeps coming up, is the information that is used to train the AI sometimes is not licensed properly. there are a number of lawsuits right now going on about the use of materials that have been implemented by different large language models to train their AI. And I find a lot of my clients, especially post houses, I did this talk about AI at a convention for the professionals in post houses, and they were all very concerned about using AI because they didn't know if the AI was clean, ethical, and also whether it would, lead to future lawsuits. So those things are still being worked out. The studios have a number of lawsuits against these large, AI models. Another concern.
I think there's two questions in there. I think what's the expected yield of equity versus debt? And then how do you create borrowing base if it's for a single picture and can it go to the sequel?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question, to be honest. The famous word, it depends. I think one of the challenges for independent films is putting something out that's worthy enough to go theatrical, because your P&A expenditure could be much more expensive than the actual production budget. In general, how are you distributing your film? You have to have marketing. Plus, no marketing, no one's going to see the film. And if you don't get a pre-sale, a bit of a guarantee, going through something like a YouTube or something, you still need to create awareness of that. And so what some people are doing, they're actually putting that marketing cost within their budget to anticipate and to finance the whole thing. So I don't know if I answered the question. A P&A there's not a lot of P&A lenders, but I think part of the problem is because no one predicted. And more importantly, needs to fall back on other ancillary revenue. Now it's just theatrical radio. That's really hard to kind of figure out.
So I have a question related to that. Where's P&A being spent nowadays, Adrian, Peter?
Not on the films we're financing. I mean, small budget independent movies. You go back 20 years, and maybe there was a little bit of a market for that, and you had studios with specialty divisions that would do just that. But that is long gone. I mean, there are some, there's A24, Neon, and some guys like that will put money behind very high concept, very sort of premium level talent involved in independently made films. But for the most part, domestically at least, there's very little P&A funding for smaller budget independent movies.
So would you do a purely P&A financing, Peter, Adrian? No? No. So there we go. So Anora's P&A budget apparently was more than its production budget.
The phrase is nothing succeed like success. I mean, Terrifier, was a film that they didn't want to take a bit of a guarantee up front. That they did a film, say, called Cineverse, though, and they didn't fit. They had a product, second one, third one rather, and it worked. But again, those are always the unique. If general independent film, first time or second time, you're not.
Blair Witch and Witchwater.
Yeah, Blair Witch. The Blair Witch 2 failed.
The problem for P&A money is that there's so many variable risks involved with that. The risks that we manage are nothing compared to P&A. I mean, down to what other films are coming out that weekend, the weather, holidays, sporting events. I mean, it's just almost unimaginable how you kind of navigate through that in terms of mitigating risk.
So are the studios the ones that are raising the P&A funds and deploying the P&A funds?
Their own movies or for indies?
Yeah, for pretty. I don't. Wow. Think you see much independent kid. Well,
so how do people market those independent films? A question.
Yeah. Is a festival circuit? Is the festival circuit the only kind of
and social media?
Social media.
You have to
building your own job.
You see one of the trends where you get an actor, you also get an influencer in your movie.
Does that work? heard from my clients that
This is
I've
where this is where the creator economy
Yeah.
overlaps with the film industry.
Right.
This is why there's going to be a lot of interplay between them. AI's out here. That's the real issue.
Urgence.
Yeah, the creator economy, the YouTube stars and the influencers, the grass is always greener. They always want to come to the film and TV side, yet the film and television professionals are looking at the creator economy and going, "Oh my God, they're the one that's taking our box office. You're on the mobile phone. You're not going to the theater."
Is it almost like product placement and convergence of
Those are brands.
yeah?
There's the fourth element there, but that's actually the big nut to crack. Is, oh, Mr. Beast endorse my film or support it? Well, Roblox game developers do a brand integration with my film and market my characters to their audience. That's really and then if I have an independent film, what social media influencers do I hire?
The demographic to
Attach what demographics do I attach? Because you want that social media
represents a few of those content creators slash influencers, and they charge a lot of money.
right.
Isn't that because isn't that
But they're not
Yeah,
not
again,
Yeah.
it's all about awareness because there's a lot of product out there. And how do you stand out? As I mentioned earlier, traditionally you have a lead actor that everybody knows, or lead director, or something to sell. And now you see these, I don't know if it's AI, but that bots that go out and say my film's great, and they go there to the freaking website, tell everybody. That's another use of kind of marketing to create awareness.
just let me get somebody else's question, and I'll come back to it. Go ahead.
friends and family.
A lot of friends and family.
Family is always the first place you start, and then you kind of cut your teeth because you want your friends and family to love what you create. So they're your first fans, and that's been true throughout time. And then there's doctors and the dentists, and then
The professionals.
it's the professionals that get involved. But that's literally how it starts.
Pay to play.
Short films, lots of short.
It depends what you're aiming at.
Yeah.
If you're aiming at a $100,000 budget movie, then yeah, okay. So a larger budget movie, I think honestly, the first thing you should do is talk to producers that have made $1 million movie before, and because you, as a producer, you have to have knowledge, not necessarily expertise, but knowledge of probably 20 different disciplines. The chances that you have that on your first movie is very low. So you need to partner up with a co-producer, exec producer, somebody who's been down that road, can point you in the right direction. The other person that will be indispensable to you in terms of raising money and doing all the things that go beyond that is finding a lawyer that will, walk you through that process that you can learn from their experience.
By the way, no one likes working with first-time producers. Everybody does first-time producers, first-time directors. So I always encourage people, make a short.
Yeah.
For your first project. Don't try to make $1 billion up front.
And that really helps.
But I think
that's very important.
that is very important.
Very, very
Done something. And in that respect,
It's proof of concept. Yeah.
in that case.
100%. I can't tell you the number of movies that started out as shorts and then what became long form. Absolutely.
Yes, credits are a very good source of financing. The film I mentioned earlier, Dead Man's Wire, had 60 EPs on that film.
I hope all on shared card. Got it. The same way they do for A-list talent. Yeah. Adrian?
Well, we've been approached by some producers that have partnered up with, influencers or, people that have significant, online followings and are making a movie with 2 or 3 of those individuals in that movie to tap into those, those followings. It didn't go much further than that initial discussion. I don't know whether they ended up making the movie, but we honestly, we haven't seen a lot of that. I mean, it's I don't know what the reason is, because years ago, I think the whole industry thought, oh, there's going to be this huge coming together of the independent business and the online, sort of personalities. But it hasn't really worked out that way. I don't know what explains that.
So the quickest
I can't get my kids to go to the movie theater if I paid.
the quickest reference is Instagram followers. That's the quickest reference. How many IG followers do they have?
I'm going to answer this question from
Or our audience?
experience. So
Out of it.
I represent two producers who are young. They're, Gen Zers quite well. And they have movies that are geared toward younger audiences, 20-year-olds. Consistently in every movie we've made in the past 5 years, they've had people with 1 million, 2 million followers on Instagram. And I have to say, you probably know the answer. You probably already know the answer. So do you. Those have not translated into dollars as far as distribution or as far as audience or move the needle in any way. And they didn't hire them because they were influencers. They hired them because they were actors who happened to have a large following. So it really
Actor
is right.
that then
Actors.
their IG.
Exactly.
Ed.
Exactly. And in fact, in part of some of their agreements, we do an additional agreement as an influencer or as a content creator that they promoted on their various social platforms. But it has not moved the needle so far. It makes.
So the question was AI. We discussed how AI is affecting us currently, but what about 1 to 3 years or 5 years? Can't even look at next week. But all I know is AI is getting better. It's getting into every facet of our work, and it's going to make us more productive.
Becoming a therapist?
No, not on my
Joke.
not on my.
Joking and joke.
But what I do know for sure is the person that knows AI and uses AI is the one that's going to take the job in the creative industry. That's the creative industry. Yeah. On Friday, I was at a coffee place, and we were just talking loudly about AI, just me and my friend. There was no context to it. We just said the buzzword AI really loud, and some writers approached us and derided us. They're like, it was we were like, I could have stood up and said, well, you don't know what I'm talking about. You have no context to this.
Is that how you got the foot?
Yes, that is how I broke my foot. But it was almost like vitriol. Like, oh my God, you're AI. Oh, no, it's embarrassing. You embarrassed. I was like, you don't even know what we're talking about. But just by saying AI, that's like.
It's not copyrightable. It's not on the, yeah.
But at the same time, it's coming.
Yes. Oh, that is an actress that was created by AI.
Well, no, not necessarily casting, it's helping casting agents. But this is a particular project that this training company Imagine does. It helps create an image. It says, this is what I'm looking for. So once again, it's a tool. It's not replacing the person, but it helps the tool be more, this is what it looks like. This is what we want to see. And they'll give it a generative AI image to help a casting agent go, okay, this is what, visual.
Yeah, so I use similar tools as well. And they go, oh, based on your script, this is an 89% match to this actor, 75% to this actor. Then you go to the agencies and I want these guys. And they're like, sorry, not available. Sorry, you have to go through that entire process. So the AI agency, they're helping you, identifying the actors and actresses that you didn't think about. And that will add to your short lists or change the sorting of your short list. But then the reality of it is you got to go to the talent agency.
Just a tool. It's just a tool. Like a calculator.
It's a very good.
Was a very good calculator.
Or it hallucinates.
Right.
It's just a complements the software that we're already subscribing to. We're actually spending more money because we have our regular staff, and the regular staff, they have mixed emotions on AI. And then I, on my end, on the strategy side, subscribe to these AI tools that help me, run a efficient shop. And these tools will recommend these things. But then the reality of it is when the creatives come in, they're like, well, this person isn't good because of this. And because they have more knowledge, because they're closer to it. So it's a pairing of this. It's the ongoing discussion and the dialogue that makes me a little bit more informed and gives me a little bit, I could bring more ideas to the table. But at the end of the day, it's the creative process still plays out the way it's playing out.
So, thing to add here is, I will come back to your question, but another thing to add is, the deep fakes and how they're using people's images and likeness and voice. So we talked about how celebrities are important in making movies and creating content. That's why we all go. We relate to these people. We know what we're getting. You can't replace that. And then you talk about deep fakes and using people's images and voice and music and spinning it. And publicity rights. I don't know if you've heard of publicity rights, but that's what's, come into play now. People have a right to their image and voice and how it's used, and estates do as well. And we have some laws coming down the pipeline with Congress, which will make it a federal law, which will, kind of organize it across all the states. So hopefully our lawmakers can kind of catch up with the ethics and how we use AI. And that will solve and answer a lot of the questions that all have. So that law has been working its way through Congress for some time now. Hopefully it will, it will get ratified. As there's some other laws actually in the Copyright Office where, you can, it's called Transparency Act, and you are, gives people a right to subpoena AI makers on what content they use to train their AI. So once these federal laws are enacted and Congress kind of gets behind it, I think it will help a lot of these issues that we're having. The lady in the back.
Yeah, actually, within the United States, you really can't. It's called double dipping. And the only way you can take a federal, which is you come in with 181. So you can kind of use a 181 credit and use tax credit at the same time. So you're getting a double effect that way. But generally, no, you can't stack subsidies. Well, that's different. Again, there's different terminology. We break it up and call, soft dollars and hard dollars. And soft dollars are any type of subsidies, grant, credit, whatever. And that,
unless you shoot part of the project in one state, another part.
Yeah, but you're still not, you're only going to get, you're not going to get 50%. You can't take 20.
Yeah, in two places at the same time.
There's no double dipping. But if you go to Canada has a very good program because you have the federal, the provincial, and then in certain places where it's really cold,
Quebec,
snowy, there's more incentives on top of that. So if you go to Manitoba, for example, you can get up to 60% of your budget. But obviously you're in Manitoba. But
we were just involved in a film in Switzerland, and they got 85% subsidized for this film. But that's the European.
you have to have some yodeling.
well, Luxembourg is almost 100%. I have a client there.
So that there are, but again, in the U.S., you don't. It's not as the government doesn't support the creatives as much as Europe.
Yeah, outside of the U.S., places like Canada, the UK, Australia have co-production treaties, so you can qualify in multiple territories. The U.S. doesn't have anything like that, so you're one and done unless there's some local money or something like that. But you can get creative internationally, but there's added expense.
You have to pay more if you have SAG members, union members.
Yeah, you have to figure out that there's a tipping point where it's worth it or not.
And then also you have the added, I must say this, you have the added component of trying to figure out how to set it up, what partners to use in what territories, and whereas here we all kind of know each other as a small community and have to reach it outside of that. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, they're not here yet. Illustrious Leaders has threatened to do that, and as Nadia said earlier, is not able to do that, but who needs law in this country?
So we're exploring online crowdfunding platforms because it's already a well-worn path now, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and whatnot. And then there are other platforms that actually, due to RIG-CF and the Jobs Act, have allowed you to raise money from unaccredited investors online. I would explore those as well. There's one that we're working with, Republic, which they have a film and television division. And if they get an upsurge of applications, then they're going to pay me. They're going to take me out to lunch or something. But I mean, Republic is a platform that takes advantage of the Jobs Act, where you could put your project online. And then I think Robert Rodriguez raised $2 million. Sam Pressman raised $2 million. Republic, Skybound raised $17 million on it. Eli Roth was $5 million, I think. So Republic has been doing pretty well on that front. And that's RIG-CF, unaccredited investors. It goes up by the merit of your project or your brand, and then they'll invest in that.
I have a question. The people that you just mentioned are people who are already known and they go to these platforms. What if it's somebody who's just starting?
Kickstarter.
The other one is, are you familiar with Angel Studios? Okay, they do faith-based, primarily movies.
Grassroots.
Art.
Grassroots.
And they have their guild members, and they vote on projects that they want the studio to use. And then they also will put in money because they want to see that type of film. So that's another type of, but again, that's kind of geared toward, it's not
There's a sort of content.
Yeah.
There's also a platform called Slated,
Yeah.
which is
It's been around for a while.
an aggregation of investors. I do believe you have to pay sort of upfront to sort of get through the door, but
So it's been a while since I worked with Slated. I worked with them on First Light, which is what I filmed back in 2017. And they didn't use RIG-CF or anything. So they were still FINRA, broker-dealer. They still were going through those motions. I'm not sure if they did that. But again, there are other platforms that have FINRA and SEC based off the Jobs Act. So that those platforms are more.
Also grants, depending on the kind of content that you're making. Look into grants.
But online is a really good place to at least get your friends and family, your doctors and your lawyers, your dentists, and then the online crowd. It really is market validation too. If you could get a lot of fandom just from your community, building your own community, that really helps out. And when you go to a producer and say, I just got $100 from 1,000 of my friends on online, that really shows that's compelling.
Very true. Yeah. If they believed enough to give you money, then, there's something there. They're your test group, your mini, kind of.
This is where the creator industry melds with the film and television industry, because we're looking for validation online as well. Do you have a community? Do you have people that are supporting this IP before it launches?
That's what I did, yeah. Any more questions?
Networking. Go to an event like this. Go to just
Markets.
American film market that's coming up. Go there. You just networking is the best way. I think.
Be around other creative people. An internship.
There, just start. I think that's the key word.
Adrian?
I mean, this is what this industry is. It's being in front of all the talk about AI and everything. to be honest, it's a personal, like I said at the start, it's a very personal business, whether it's making contact with people or putting your film out there, that sort of thing. So from a starting point, you got to identify what are the things I need to move forward. What are the functions and who performs those functions? So pick up the phone to the bond company, pick up the phone to the financier, pick up everyone. We all eat lunch. We all like coffee, buy us a coffee, take us out for lunch, and just accumulate that knowledge and those relationships, because that's what it really boils down to.
And kind of know what you're trying to do, right? Kind of flesh it out for yourself. And do your research. I can't say enough about this. Every time about these panels, it kind of ends up there. But do your research and be prepared and know who you're going to speak with and why you're speaking with them. And that goes up very long. If you picked up the phone, I think if Peter, he would respond. Same thing with Adrian or me, Jeff. We all started in this business and kind of,
Actually, this is where AI really helps out. I was like, dear ChatGPT, I have a concept and I would like it to become a feature film at this level. And then ChatGPT will literally give you a checklist of what to do and just go through that checklist. And at least by the time you get to Peter's and the Adrian Wards of the world, you're super prepared and they get something that they expect to see. And that makes getting to a yes so much easier. So much easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is my personal opinion. Yes. Yes. Because I literally have seen Quibi, right? And then that flame out, and then China take on with their verticals. It's so mature in China now. And then now it's growing so fast over here. And I'm just seeing it. And I'm like, oh my God, there are vertical stars that are like super famous that you'd never heard about because it's in that circuit. And these actors are going to be the big actors in your television shows, in your films of tomorrow. So I think there's a good place there, but it is the Wild West.
Do you think that what is happening in China is translatable to a?
No, it's not, because it's a different audience. But I'm just looking at like what's happening. Like I'll go to China and be like, oh my God. First of all, they have blue skies now. Like that's crazy because they've cleaned up. And this is, the last time I went there was before COVID, happened in 2019. And then I went back there last year or this year.
Literally have blue skies.
Blue skies in Beijing and Shanghai. And I've never seen that before. Not that much. I don't have the answer, but I just know that when I watch a good movie, it changes my perspectives. The verticals are just like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. That'll keep my attention for another 45 seconds. But it doesn't.
It's about but I think the other thing is where are people consuming entertainment? Well, I think YouTube has the largest viewer, has more viewers than Netflix and all the cable companies put together.
Is it because it's free?
It's advertiser supported. So the verticals, once again, it worked in that ecosystem as far as who's going to watch that. Okay. That I've been to, a friend of mine did it. We think Pro remake, big $50 million. I went to the theater. I was the only one in the theater. Wasn't there? Will be. People just don't go to the theaters. And so, again, the verticals fit what people are consuming.
This is my personal opinion. I don't think so, because what you're getting pigeonholed, that's your own confines. Get your IP out there and get audience reaction to it. And then you could build from that. You could go from platform to platform. It's the characters in the story that you need to get market validation. So I don't see that, but I think there will be other people with different opinions, right? Oh, no, this has to be a television show, or oh, that has to be theatrical. But to me, it's like, you need to build that community, build that fan base for your IP any way you do it. It is a Wild West. So yeah,
And we're leaning towards vertical because the current model's not working. But I'm focusing on independent films that when you go to the film markets and they come back with prices that don't justify the budget. One of our, the producer of the Hurt Locker, very successful. He goes, I can't make money making movies in independent movies. He was very talented. He knows what he's doing. Verticals are maybe the next. We don't know yet. The current model, to be honest, just is.
So just to summarize, you're basically saying that I think some people in the back could hear. It's quality. You have to make quality content at the end of the day. Going back to what Adrian was saying, at the heart of it, it starts with a good story, good execution, and people who can perform, whatever format you start or begin or end with, right? And Peter, the movie that you brought up was not a good thing, right? So, put that on top of the cost of going to the theater, right? So, does not make for a good combination.
But again, it's hard to make a good movie, bottom line. Yes.
but you have to remember, movies are also iterative too. But this slow, long, iterative processes. With verticals and other short form, it's fast. You get to iterate, and then you get your community, you get your fans, you build your community, and you build that up to a long form. So, I mean, and then after the
Get your
movie comes
feedback
out,
too.
you get your feedback quickly. And then once you produce and your long form project does well, then you have to keep on feeding your community. And so creators are really well positioned for that because they get it.
It's almost like making it short, longer or short.
Totally. It's very difficult to make it look like the long form zone. Yeah. From what I heard, TikTok settles your payments that night. So you get paid for the views that you generate in 24 hours. And so if you're someone that's creating verticals and putting it on, let's just say TikTok, literally get paid almost every day. Yeah. You just got to get on that algorithm.
Immediate gratification.
So that's starting to sound like crypto revenue models to me. So yeah, so you guys see where it's going.
Go ahead.
I think Disney invested in a vertical
Which is
app. I saw that announcement come out. So they're looking into it.
no, it's too early at this stages, but what they're adapting to is, as I said earlier, the old model's not working. Okay.
So you have to try something else.
You have to try something. You can't just be spending. And it's also a great way for first-time producers to get into something. So instead of trying to raise $1 million, they're raising 300,000, and you can hopefully get distribution and get something better and see how it works.
But also remember, as Adrian and Peter both said, you're doing 3 of them. You're doing a couple of them at a time. So, it's all
That was more just for us to be involved because we're not going to do a $300,000 charge. Not good. But again, one thing about the industry, it's constantly changing. I know this is about AI, and there's just various tools. How do you create a good story, get it out there, and it's a multivariate analysis that you have to work on.
That
yeah, we'll get it.
No, it's not dead. I think this is the whole MGM Amazon discussion where, what was it, the James Bond estate didn't want to work with Amazon because they referred to it as content and versus film. And there's a nuance there. Film, there's artistry, there's lots of thoughtfulness, there's, passion. But content is more of a tech term. And the thing is, you're getting technology companies coming in. Netflix is a technology company, right? That generates content that now has hired Dan Lin and working on better quality stuff, right? But the terminology is very nuanced. Content is stuff that goes out and fulfills a demand.
With
Whereas film,
algorithm and some tech bros coming in with,
yeah, and then film is there's more art to it. So, but that's just a conversation that's played out very quickly. And I catch myself a lot too because I'm in the film industry, but it's invaded by content. And that box office is literally taken by content producers rather than film producers. But that's the reality of what we're living in. How do you deal with that?
I think the question is does it have a curve? Is it going to go in a cycle? I mean, the same way reality TV was the thing. Now it's kind of slowly.
I don't know the algorithms of all of these companies, but I was told one algorithm from a leading UGC platform is 7 days. So if your content doesn't get picked up, it doesn't, and you can't keep on feeding content every 7 days or less, you're going to drop out of the algorithm. That is no way for a filmmaker to survive if they're taking 2, 3, 4 years to make a film, right? So the bottle's just changed.
Is indie film dead, Adrian?
Oh no, definitely not. I mean, I think, look, we've seen the studios pull back tremendously in terms of the scope and the number of films that they're making, so that they, where they pulled out from, the independent filmmaker gets to move into to some extent. Obviously, they're not making $100 million movies, but I think the landscape for independent film is bigger than it's ever been. It's just coincides with that overall pie being sliced up thinner and thinner because of, everything that's available on YouTube. I mean, I look at my kids, like I said earlier, I used to take them to the movies and they'd sit there for a couple of hours and watch it. But they have no interest. They're 20 now, so they're 19, 20. So they no interest in superhero movies because they grew up and watched probably 50 of them. Now they don't want to sit in a movie theater because it's 2 hours without having their phone in front of them. And then they'll want to watch 45-second, 2-minute sort of things, or they'll watch other people playing video games. And I'm like, what is that about? But so it's just there's a big shift in the generational sort of how they
Attention span?
and how they absorb all that content. I mean, when I grew up, there were movie theaters and there was TV, and that was it. I grew up in a country where there were 3 television channels. So here, it's just there's an abundance of things. Sometimes maybe there's too much. I don't know. So I don't think indie film is dead. I think it's just it has to find its place in amongst all of that.
But the audience is looking for engagement. They're not looking to be spoken to or shown something pushed on them. They want to consume something and interact with it. So how are you going to get that audience that wants engagement, constant engagement, to the movie theater? So you have to build up your IP big enough for them to get that butt out of their couch and into the movie theater. And for us at Toei Animation, we're looking for engagement. How do we get our characters, whether it's a new IP or legacy IP, to engage with the audience? We know that they love anime. That's great. They'll buy merch. But what's the next step? So we're going on Roblox. We're going on to all these UGC platforms. We're definitely on YouTube. How do we make sure that audience can engage with us? Because that's what they're demanding.
You need to have a relationship and
Have to have that relationship, that the meeting.
and authenticity.
Sure.
Right. How much time we have left? 5 minutes? Okay, go ahead.
And so you're talking about Minecraft and how the engagement is off the charts. And it's funny, I was speaking to some colleagues that weren't even sure that Minecraft was going to do well. And as someone that sees my kids play Minecraft all day long, you're just like, that's a no-brainer. And this should absolutely is a hit. But they were still, the executives were still scratching the, oh my God, is he going to do well? And of course it did well. But that IP is amazing. A good movie is a good movie.
Look at I get my input from my children, in hacker, which I also find fascinating. Where they play online games with their friends. That is their social connection. They are constantly playing the games and rarely want to go to a movie ticket. So going back to you mentioned cinematic. Yeah, I think it's ironic we still look term for our industry as film, but we should talk television. Nobody. And so I think you forget it's storytelling at the end of the day. How you tell the story, got to reach your audience, whoever that may be. Well, I think most people go to the theater talking it dinosaurs like myself. But again, it's how you want to reach your audience and what story you kind of tell.
That's on a streamer, as I understand, right? It's on Netflix, not right. So
Second season's not that. Wednesday, second season.
What? No, it's amazing.
My kid.
everybody that thought second season was good.
Well,
There you go.
They went deeper into the board.
yeah. So see, sorry, what was your question? We press.
Emma Myers dancing was just as good as Jenny Ortega's dance. Come on. Come on. Yeah. Yeah.
Prokofiev was great.
No, but again, we talked about film, and as I mentioned earlier, starting. I'm still a big proponent of TV. It's hard to do for an independent, but one of the biggest challenges, you make film, where are they going to see it? They'll see it in the theater, you don't see it anywhere. When you go in TV, you are making it for the medium that's going to consume. And the process of independent is not easy. We've only financed a couple of independent films. We did Leverage back with Dean Devlin back in the day. If he's still making a ton of money, that's a reboot on that. So TV is still, I still think is a business, even though Midcom, I think YouTube, I think they hated the TV market started.
So your point is that you don't really finance independent television. There is no such a.
No, you can't. I'm just saying it's a little more challenging. I'm actually working with someone now, this amazing concept that I did much more with ET on this project, and everybody loves it because it fits what TV needs. It's a little bit different, and it's a target to a younger generation. So,
A happy ending, signs of happy ending.
I think there will be a happy.
Soon.
Yeah. I have a feeling 2026 is going to be a really good year for the studios because of all the guild strikes and everything. They got back to work, and there's a lot of product on the shelf that will be released in 2026. So I do believe that the supply of film will go back to hopefully pre-COVID levels. And then I'm assuming that the demand will be there for the films that break out. And then I'm really hoping that P&A lending will be coming back.
Adrian?
Yeah, I think the rest of this year and next year, I think there's a lot of reasons to be positive about in the independent film space. The indications from some within our company on the payroll side is that the production is trending up. It's a little bit more consistent than it has been. And from talking to a lot of foreign buyers, they've had some tough years, but their pipelines are fairly empty. So they're going to have a need to buy content. So those two things sort of coming together is a good thing.
International sales is going to pick up.
Yeah. With the prices for those sales, we don't know, but at least the content demand is there.
Yeah, and that's yeah. Good news is there's still a business. As Adrian said, the price point has dropped dramatically. And I think
Maybe the takeaway is to make your content for or your film.
make the good
Film for, yes.
And that's where AI is going to come in.
It's going to help you in that. There you go. Still make your film long form, but make it shorter. I'm getting the sign that we need to wrap it up. So do we have time for one quick call? Oh, yes.
I love K-pop, Demon Hunter.
Packed.
So, so, so I would argue that you got to produce films that the audience is looking for. And I think there's a disconnect between what the studio system executives think is a good film, and what the audience thinks is a good film. So
Maybe that's the
I
problem.
would use K-pop Demon Hunters as like case study, because those executives at Netflix were jittery for that title to come out. At Sony, they gave it to they sold it to Netflix, and then even at Netflix, there were still
Even Squid Games, right?
yeah. So there's a disconnect.
Yeah, my 17-year-old son saw Demon Slayer twice in the movie. See, it
Oh, he did go to the theater.
was and
Demon Slayer, and that's animes.
There you go.
Sure.
So, guys, it's not dead. We have good news.
it's on life support.
It's at birth. Shut up, Korea. Yeah. Thank you for being here, and thank you for our panelists. Thank you, Peter. You're always traveling. It was a pleasure to have you. Thank you. It was an honor. Adrian, likewise, thank you for taking a Sunday.
Pleasure.
You from your family engagements and everything else. Thank you so much, Jeff, for being. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nadia, for getting us all together.
Thank you. And thank you to you all for coming in and spending your Sunday with